Before my mom, Myrtle Beagles Kuykendall, died, I was living about 180 miles away from her, and when I was working on family history, I would call her and record the conversation. One of the stories she told me was about her half uncle, Howard Lewis Salyer, murdering a woman. She told me the story when she was 91 years old. The murder had occurred 83 years prior when she was 8 years old. I didn't have any corroboration, and the story was short on details, even the name of the victim or the date of the event, so I didn't want to write about it without some additional information. I've now found numerous articles in Oklahoma newspapers which give dates, names, and details.
Anyway,
But you said somebody was beating somebody up, and
well, I don't know why they were that mad at Grandma Sawyer's. What happened? What was the reason they got her? But the old man held her, and she beat her. And so.
And that was his mom,
Yeah,
Grandma
that
Sawyer.
was his mom.
Yeah.
And so he hid out in the bushes, and when she come out sometime where he could, he just shot her.
He shot her, and so it's the woman he killed. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Never killed the man, just the woman. And then so they brought him to us after night. And he stayed with us for, I don't know how long he stayed with us, but anyway.
I now know from newspaper accounts the victim was Sally Scott, aka Mrs. R.L. Scott, and that the shooting occurred October 18, 1922, at the Scott's home between Kellyville and Bristow, Oklahoma. By all accounts, the murder was committed by 17-year-old Howard Lewis Salyer with the assistance of Buck Kendall, who was probably Howard's half-brother. Following is one of the newspaper stories from the Tulsa World, Friday, October 19, 1922. The above newspaper article reads as follows. Dispute over cow, cause of murder near Kellyville. Officers seek two slayers. Wife of farmer is cruelly slain. Shot 5 times while picking corn for her chickens. Murderers escape. Husband of victim fires 11 shots at men who flee into woods, special to the world. Sapulpa, October 19th, Mrs. Bob Scott, 35 years old, was shot and almost instantly killed last night as she walked in a field near her home as a result of a feud of several years standing between two families. The body of the dead woman was brought to Lewis Landreth Undertaking Chapel here today for examination, where it will be held awaiting funeral arrangements to be made upon the arrival of relatives from Texas. According to authorities, the family of Scott and the family of W.L. Salyer have been enemies for years. A son of Salyer, the Salyer household, is said to have hid behind a corn shock and shot Mrs. Scott as she approached him from gathering corn for her chickens. Quarrel over cow. Additional facts on the killing say it was the result of a dispute over a milk cow that had been in progress for several weeks between R. Scott and Howard Salyer. Salyer and Buck Kendall are being sought tonight in the woods between Kellyville and Bristow by officers who charged them with the murder of Mrs. Scott. Mrs. Scott went into a cornfield to get Kaffir corn for her flock of chickens, and while filling a small pail was fired upon by Salyer and Kendall, who appeared to be hiding in the field. Mrs. Scott was shot 5 times, dying 5 hours afterwards. The shots brought Scott to the scene, and he rushed back into his house and grabbed a shotgun, fired after Salyer and Kendall, who were fleeing. The men stopped and returned fire, but none of the 17 shots took effect. Scott is said to have sold a cow to Salyer, but because Salyer could not pay all the money down, Scott took a mortgage on the animal and proceeded to keep her pinned up. Salyer demanded the cow, and several bitter arguments occurred, and it is alleged that Salyer and Kendall, a relative, plotted to kill both Scott and his wife. The plans of the plot were revealed to Scott, who had Salyer placed under peace bond. Of course, this is a story told to the police and the newspaper by R.L. Scott, and nothing is said about beating Howard's mom, Julia Salyer. From the newspaper account, the police seemed to think the culprits were afoot, when in fact a relative had transported them about 100 miles away to Myrtle's parents' house in Yucha, Oklahoma, where they hid out for a while. The incident was widely reported in Oklahoma newspapers in October and November of 1922, but I couldn't find any stories relating to the event after that date. I haven't been able to find any story suggesting either Howard Salyer or Buck Kendall were ever caught or prosecuted for the crime. This is curious since Howard continued to live in Oklahoma and never changed his name. In fact, less than 3 years later, on May 2nd, 1925, this wedding announcement ran in the Adair Citizen newspaper. Hughes Salyers. Miss Flossie Hughes and Howard Salyers drove to Pryor Saturday and were united in marriage. Flossie is the youngest daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Charlie Hughes, who live northwest of town and is very popular with the young folks. Mr. Salyers lives over near Chelsea. The Citizen Force joins other friends in wishing Mr. and Mrs. Salyers a long and happy married life. Pryor, Oklahoma is about 70 miles from Kellyville, where the murder took place. Another example of Howard continuing to live in Oklahoma and not changing his name is the above draft registration card from October of 1940, which shows that Howard registered for the draft in Sapulpa, Oklahoma, about 10 miles from the scene of the shooting. It seems that little or no effort was made to capture and prosecute Howard for his offense after the initial search in 1922. Although I have searched old newspapers and Ancestry.com for information on Sally Scott, or even an obituary, I've had no luck. Howard had 4 half-brothers with the last name of Kendall, but none with the first name of Buck. Assuming Buck was a nickname, his accomplice may have been any one of the 4. The closest to Howard's age are Floyd Melvin Kendall and Ardeen Kendall. If anyone has any more information, please let me know. As noted above, Howard and Flossie married May 2nd, 1925. Their marriage continued for 49 years until Howard passed away May 25th, 1974.